Your brothers and sisters. Hope everything is fine with all of you. Hope everything is fine with your families from North America to Southeast Asia, from Oceania to South Africa, from the whole world. We welcome you to this last lecture out of the 5-part lecture series that we have had the honor to organize together with Al-Ghazali Chair of ISTAC-IIUM, International Islamic University of Malaysia. We at ISIP are very honored to collaborate with ISTAC and IIUM. We want to thank ISTAC and IIUM for all the excellent works you guys are doing in Islamic thought. And also we want to thank you, Professor Osman, for being with us and allowing us to learn from your vast amount of knowledge and experience, mashallah. May Allah always bless you and shower his barakah upon you and your excellent deeds. We're so honored to be a student of yours. So this is Islamic Psychology from the Ghazalian Perspective. And let's start the day, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So as you know, this is the last session, and it's a bittersweet moment, right? We will miss these lectures with Professor Osman. We will miss all of you, dear excellent brothers and sisters from all over the world. But this is not the ending. We have our WhatsApp group, Al-Ghazali group, that you can still use to discuss different topics connected to Imam Ghazali's works. Of course, we as ISIP will always be at your service, so you can join the movement and be part of all other initiatives that we're doing, lectures, seminars, conferences, our local and regional chapters. And inshallah, we will discuss more with Professor Osman, and hopefully we can have more lectures with Professor Osman in series. That will be such an honor. So all the endings are always a new beginning, as we say. This is an opportunity for you guys to marinate your knowledge, to apply it, and to further develop it as well. We will start by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, inshallah, going through a little bit guidelines. We will give a certificate of appreciation and also an ebook, to a gift from us to Professor Osman and also to all other participants, inshallah, with some testimonials. Then we will have the lecture with Professor Dr. Osman Bakar, and afterwards, as usual, we will have Q&As. And we will end with some forms and closing du'as. And of course, all of you have passed all the assessments will also get a certificate as well. So this is also very, very wonderful. So let's start by just reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een, ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Sadaqallah. We pray that all of you will always be continuing your excellency, being seekers of knowledge, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always put barakah upon Professor Osman's work and always keep you, Professor Osman, in shifa, and all of us in shifa as well, inshallah. Barakallah feekum. Some just Zoom etiquettes as usual. Keep your microphone muted, please, just so that Professor Osman can lecture in an easy way. No recording or screenshots, please. We will share the recording of the session as usual on our YouTube channel. And also the PowerPoints will be sent to all of you who registered to the course. All questions, please refer them to the chat and we will address them to Professor Osman at the end of the Q&A session. If you need live transcriptions, please feel free to press the more button in the Zoom and then request for them, and we will allow you to access it, inshallah. Ways to contribute to the ISIP, the International Students of Islamic Psychology. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find a lot of lectures in Islamic psychology in different languages. We will share the link in the Zoom chat. Also join our Islamic Psychology WhatsApp group for resource sharing. If you're not joined already, we will share the link for group 17 in the Zoom. We also have an exclusive Al-Ghazali lecture WhatsApp group for discussions, and we will have that open even after the series are over for you to further discuss and reflect upon all the content. Also, you can become a member of ISIP via our website at www.isip.foundation, where you can get access to our digital library. Everything is free of charge. Membership is free of charge. Also, if you want to be part of a local chapters and regional chapters, or establish a local chapter, if you don't have a local chapter in your country or region, feel free to send an email to us at admin@isip.foundation. All other questions as well. We will also share the email in the Zoom chat as well. We also want to tell you guys that this is the last session, of course, the final session. Next week on Saturday, we will have a lecture of the contribution of Professor Osman Najati, one of the leading pioneers in Islamic psychology modern era from Egypt. This will be led by Dr. Amber Haq, one of the leading scholars in the field from US. This is next Saturday, inshallah. We will also send information on our WhatsApp groups. Also, we will start the halaqa after this lecture series in reading in the Ihya Ulumuddin and trying to get psychological know-how from it, together with Dr. Mubarak from Singapore, inshallah. This halaqah will be announced through email to all of you who register to this courses, but also on all of our WhatsApp groups. We will probably start it in 1 to 2 to 3 months, inshallah. So this is a lot of things to look forward to, and inshallah also more lectures with Professor Osman in the future. We hope to organize, it will be such an honor. And also all lectures that Professor Osman does, we will share in all of our Islamic psychology groups, because Professor Osman is very active, and also in the Al-Ghazali group as well. Today's session, the final session, is about the internal message of Al-Ghazali psychology to the contemporary world. And as we said, recording of this session, slides and mini assessment will be available in 3 days, inshallah. So I need to correct myself. You need to do the final assessment as well to get the certificate, of course. Before we present Professor Osman, Sister Fatima, please take over for the e-certificates, inshallah. Maybe I announce this as well, and then you take over. So the final assessment should be completed by Friday, the 13th of September. Recordings will continue to be available, of course, for all to benefit. However, assessment will be closed and no further e-certificates will be issued after September the 30th. So have that date in mind, dear excellent brothers and sisters. E-certificates will be emailed out to those who have successfully completed the course by Sunday, the 2nd of October, signed by ISIP and IIUM and ISTAC as well, inshallah. Yes, all participants, as always, from the ISIP team, we want to thank you all for your excellency being seekers of knowledge, inshallah. And this is an e-certificate for you, as always, Professor Osman Bakar, for the excellency you have done in Islamic thought and all the disciplines, and of course, in Islamic psychology as well. We're so grateful to have you with us. Barakallah feekum. Yes, Sister Fatima, please take over.
Okay, alhamdulillah, shukrullah. Just going to, so Dr. Osman Bakar, on behalf of ISIP and all of the participants, we've been collecting testimonials. So thank you to everyone who has been sharing in the feedback forms. And we'd like to present with you a small, a book of testimonials to you. Let me just share my screen.
Let me stop sharing. Here
Yeah. Jamaluddin, can you just let me know what you can see?
Yeah, we can see the screen. Thank you, sister.
Okay. So, Barakallahu Fikum, Dr. Osman, Sheikh Osman, this is on behalf of everyone here and on behalf of ISIP, Barakallahu Fikum. I hope that you'll enjoy this and you can take time afterwards as well to read them all more thoroughly. And we'll be sending this to you as well.
Thank you very much for the gift.
Let me just play it, sorry. There we go.
سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك 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 ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ربي سبحانك.
So there's a lot of testimonials, mashallah.
There is, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. Thank you so much. I also just wanted to highlight some of the people who have been helping behind the scenes to help ISIP bring this to everybody. So I'm just going to spotlight for a second our brother Abdulaziz and sister Osi. Abdulaziz is in the UAE, and he has been helping to kind of extract all those quizzes and find out who's passed. So we thank him so much. I'm just going to spotlight him for a second, if I can find it.
Feel free to open up your camera, brother Abdulaziz, so we can greet you, inshallah. He is with us here.
Yeah. He's here. He's here. Yeah, and Sister Osia, yeah, thank you for coming on camera, Sister Osi. Sister Osi is in Thailand, and she has been helping to create those quizzes. So thank you for your diligence. So barakallahu fikum. We also have Sister Faria, who made that ebook. So yeah, there you are, Sister Brother Abdulaziz, mashallah. So thank you to both of you. And Sister Faria as well for creating that ebook and for always helping us with some of our design things. So barakallahu fikum. This is the work of many people. So alhamdulillah wa shukrullah. We just wanted to take a moment to thank everybody. Alhamdulillah. And of course to Brother Jamaluddin. Thank you so much for your leadership and facilitating all of these sessions in a beautiful manner.
Alhamdulillah. Sister Fatima, we want to thank you as well, Sister Fatima, as a project manager for this whole initiative. You've done an amazing job in coordinating and facilitating, and also to create the assessments, the questions, the reflections. So please, dear brothers and sisters, we're a movement. So this is not a one-man work. This is a collective work, collective effort. So round of applause to all of our members, actually, to all of those that Sister Fatima mentioned herself, including Professor Osman, of course, as our leading scholar, and yourself as Talib al-Ilm and as seekers of knowledge, because to be a Talib is a beautiful trait indeed. And in this day and age, which is all about fast knowledge, fast food, we need knowledge that is marinated. And that is how we try to tackle Islamic thought, is to marinate knowledge, to read thoroughly, to read it holistically, which we have been able to do together with Professor Osman. So to take this avenue instead of the fast knowledge avenue, it's a beautiful thing. So applaud yourself, and we're very proud that you guys have been through this program together with us, and inshallah we will work together. Thank you so much, everyone. So round of digital applause if you want. It's always good to show appreciation to one another as seekers of knowledge indeed. And without any further ado, we want to welcome Professor Osman to the final session, inshallah. And the floor is yours, Professor Osman. Most welcome.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And a very good day, evening or morning, wherever you are. Thank you, Brother Seyed, for the introduction, and to Sister Fatima for the e-book presentation. Thank you. And welcome, everyone. to the fifth and last lecture in the series. Inshallah, I hope in this concluding lecture, I would be able to say something about the eternal message or the message of Al-Ghazali Psychology to the contemporary world, and basically what I would like to discuss today basically is to ask the question, what does Al-Ghazali's psychology mean for the contemporary world, or precisely our present time in which we now live, inshallah. I have slides as usual. I have some slides to, to guide my presentation. All right. Let's go to the next slides. Yes. All right, here. In the last 4 lectures, I presented to you Al-Ghazali, the thinker. I put in the bracket here Hakim. Of course, it's not the translation of thinker, but I just want to emphasize, especially aspects of Al-Ghazali as a Hakim, as the wise man, because I would like to, basically, I would like to help revive the use of the word Hakim, in the sense that it was understood at the classical, the heights of classical Islam, when Islamic civilization was at its best. The word Hakim was used to mean, or literally it means the wise man, but it was used to mean someone who embodies certain values, certain perspectives. If you remember in the first introduction or the introductory lecture number 1 that I delivered, I referred to him that Al-Ghazali should be remembered as Al-Hakim, as someone, as Hakim, as a sage, as basically as a sage, someone who does not only have plenty of knowledge, a lot of information. No, that is not enough. More than just having knowledge, he embodies hikmah, wisdom, and Hakim also means one who possesses great wisdom. And Ghazali is remembered by most people as alim, as ulama, much seldom, less frequent, people refer to him as Hakim. I think it is a greater honor for Al-Ghazali if we were to call him Hakim and not just simply alim or ulama, to which we refer the religious scholars in general, because at least in the spiritual sense, Hakim, sage, occupies only in a sense one step below a prophet. That is the such glory that we give to Hakim. So we would like to revive this, so that we in the 21st century now we remember him as Hakim, and then try to understand what that means and what we need to do. That we need we need a certain kind of education, intellectual environment in which individuals like Al-Ghazali as Hakim will emerge in our midst, inshallah. because yes, I mean, I think in the last, in the first lecture when I talked about him as Hakim, I did mention that it is we use the word as a kind of translation of the English word, universal figure. Or if you translate into Malay, for example, tokoh sejagat, but this do not really convey the meaning. Sometimes the people refer to polymath, refer to Renaissance man, but all these words do not go up to the kind of requirements that's meant by the word Hakim, because much more than just having a lot of knowledge, it's a question of the ability of Hakim to put the different branches of knowledge in the right perspective. He is able to organize the different branches of knowledge that in which he is master, in which he is expert, in which he has a lot of knowledge. So it's not simply having the knowledge in different branches of knowledge, but also someone who is able to integrate all the branches of knowledge into a unified whole in a kind of epistemological unity. And much more important than that, it is that he's able to unify the knowledge in his mind, so that the different branches of knowledge which he has becomes synthesized. So Al-Ghazali, in his mind, was able to synthesize the different streams of psychology, and I think it is sufficient to mention here, because in Islamic civilization, what is important here is not the view of a particular scholar, but rather the view of the perspective, the intellectual perspective which he represents and which he speaks on behalf of that. So just to remind us that Ghazali unifies, synthesizes in his mind the psychological, in sense, perspectives from the fuqaha, from the jurists, from the theologians, the dialectical theologians, the mutakallimun, then the philosopher. Ghazali was a philosopher, not of the school of peripatetic school which he criticized, but he laid down the foundation of a new stream of philosophy, which was taken up by Suhrawardi and also Mullah Sadra later on. And that's what I have in mind, really. So since we're talking now about the significance of Al-Ghazali for our time, so I would like to revive that. So spending a little time on that. Yeah. And of course, I would like to say also, yes, since we are talking about psychology, it means also that for Al-Ghazali, yeah, I'll say, well, if in the past the term Hakim is referred is mentioned reference to medical doctors, physicians like Ibn Sina. Now I would say that in reviving the word Hakim for Al-Ghazali, we also refer this because of his psychology. In other words, that is not applied to Hakim also to psychology. Just as Ibn Sina was referred as Hakim in his capacity as medical doctor, but now, of course, in the sense of psychology that is spiritualized, psychology that's based on wisdom. When we're talking about psychology that is based on wisdom, and the link between medical science and psychology has always been preserved in Islam, beginning with Muhammad Zakaria al-Razi, in the sense that he started it all. He, in a sense, laid down this new tradition. He began in Islamic civilization the close link between medical science and psychology. After all, it was Al-Razi who introduced what is in contemporary times known as psychosomatic medicine, the importance of psychology to medical science. So I presented also the Al-Ghazali Psychology, Science of the Soul here. Is very important, of course, in referring to Islamic, the tradition of his time. Yeah. So basically, what I presented in the last four lectures was about Al-Ghazali's Science of the Soul, Ilmun Nafs, in its various aspects and dimensions, while pointing out to the terminological limitation of the word psychology to capture the length and breadth of Ilmun Nafs. There is a big gap in terms of concepts, in terms of knowledge, in terms of principles between what we call today, what we call psychology today, and what was, in a sense, what was represented as Ilmun Nafs by Al-Ghazali. So please always bear that in mind. And I did mention the word pneumatology. Yes, Al-Ghazali was a pneumatologist. And in pneumatology, we find the spiritual foundation of psychology. If you are looking for a true foundation of psychology, of scientific psychology, but if we are looking for foundation, then that is provided by Al-Ghazali in his pneumatology. I think that is what I presented to you last time, and I would like to reassert these points in our times, which I think we do need that. Now, the second point, most of the times I presented his ideas in psychology in his own words, citing his writings that serve as the sources. I think that's the best way for us to do. In other words, is not simply a certain interpretation, our interpretation of Al-Ghazali, but what Al-Ghazali himself said in his writings. The main bulk of the ideas were taken from the Ihya, thereby justifying the description of it as a great work on spiritual psychology. This is another point I would like to emphasize in our times. We need to emphasize this point that I think is something that I'm proud to be kind of to introduce this, because many people before this, even those who have read Ihya, do not consider Ihya as a work on psychology or as a spiritual psychology. I think it is important to present that image of Ihya. So I think our psychologists, young psychologists, would be happy, yeah, to see a great work on psychology that Al-Ghazali has produced. Now, but in this concluding lecture, now what I would like to do is not to give my own interpretation, of what Al-Ghazali psychology means for the contemporary world. So I hope in the last 4 lectures I was able to present Al-Ghazali psychology. I tried to be faithful as far as possible to present Al-Ghazali psychology without really interpreting that. Basically, most of what I presented came from Al-Ghazali himself. But now, since I want to talk about what Al-Ghazali's psychology mean for the contemporary world, I cannot avoid from giving my own interpretation of the significance of Al-Ghazali psychology. I hope this interpretation, in other words, is in conformity with the very spirit of Ghazali's ideas. Of course, at the personal level, I confess that Al-Ghazali psychology has meant so much to me and to my life. I'm using this world as if he's still alive, but I would like to let you know that I have befriended Al-Ghazali in my intellectual life and in my spiritual life in the last 50 years. Having close to Al-Ghazali in the last 50 years in my life, he had taught me the meaning of substance and form of religion. In other words, religion has many levels of meaning. It is very important that we go to the substance and not just the form of religion, something that I learned from Al-Ghazali when I was a young student. And Ghazali taught me to know who I am. Is who I really am. In other words, the essence of my identity, just in the same way that he presented that in here. Then the meaning of salvation. What is the purpose of life in this world? It is primarily to gain salvation, to save our soul. That's the most important thing. Why we are in this world? It is to save our soul. And Allah provides us the means to achieve salvation. And of course, the meaning of happiness. What happiness is, how to attain happiness. I'm happy, I'm glad. I thank Al-Ghazali for the what he had contributed to my life in that sense. All right, thank you. Then the next slide. Now, the next slide, I'm bringing up the title, the topic, psychology as a perennial science. Can it come to terms with empirical psychology? That's the question. We know what basically the substance of Ghazali's psychology, or that he has written, which we understand in the context of his time. I mean, that is something normal, something that people accept, right? No difficulty of accepting that. What in our times, we live at a time when the emphasis is on the empirical knowledge. In other words, when not only psychology, but every other branch of science, what is important is empirical data. What is important is empirical approach to studying things, and that is considered as the, in fact, that's the essence of scientific disciplines. It is studying about change. It's not about permanence, and therefore modern psychology, empirical psychology, is more interested in new kind of data. Somehow it's kind of a kind of uneasiness with talking about something that is repeated again and again. That's it. So I said, I'm interpreting now a Ghazali psychology. I'm saying that it is a perennial science. You can try to find who is saying this. I do not see many, but I'm saying that Ghazali psychology is a perennial science because it is about human nature that does not change or evolve. That's what's called perennial science. You have heard the word perennial philosophy, perennial religion, because perennial simply means that we are referring to truths that are always true, to ideas that are true at all times, ideas that can never be out of date, because it is not concerned with dates. So this kind of knowledge, it is we're dealing with a reality that transcends time and space. It is something always true, because human nature despite what evolutionary science is talking about, basically it has not changed. Human nature since the first man, Adam, and the first woman, it has not changed. It has not evolved. So basically what I'm saying is that man's angelic, since man has two kinds of natures, angelic nature and animal nature. So man's angelic nature has not changed, because what we consider as say the virtues, human virtues, for example, they have been appreciated, they have been accepted by people of all ages. We're talking about sincerity, honesty, patience, compassion. All these are not ideas for a particular age. These are ideas then are considered good in all ages. The same thing with animal nature. Basically, animal nature has not changed. The forms of that, the forms of expressions of that, in other words, the material forms of expression, that may change. So people, the question of animal nature, greed, for example, greed belongs to animal nature. So we have found greedy people at all times, in all ages. When the objects of greed, that may change, but the nature of greed itself has not changed. So that's what I mean. I think that's in that sense, Al-Ghazali's psychology is dealing with ideas, with human values, human virtues that have not changed as far as the nature is concerned. In that sense, I'm calling that Ghazali psychology is a perennial science. This does not mean to say that Al-Ghazali was opposed or critical of empirical. No, it's not. If you can look at his writing, there are places in which he would refer to the animal behavior, to the animal intelligence, for example, showing that he is not against the empirical dimension. But since he was not an experimentalist, he's not a scientist or a psychologist, that sets the difference with many of the psychologists of our time. But the point that I would like to emphasize here, that Al-Ghazali's perennial psychology does not prevent us to pursue empirical studies. He does not. In fact, the question is that may be posed here is that is Al-Ghazali's perennial psychology able to understand and comprehend empirical studies carried out by the psychologists? Because sometimes the problem is not about data. It's not about data. In other words, empirical data. Ghazali has no problem with that. But sometimes the issue is, how do we interpret those data? In other words, the context here is not about the data in themselves, but in how we interpret those empirical data. I think this is the problem that we have with many observations made about human nature from the evolutionary perspective, because some of the contrary to the idea, to the perspective of perennial science. All right. So I would like to emphasize that in our times, because the wealth of data that we have in modern psychology, it's not enough having those wealth of knowledge, but how do we interpret the volumes of data that we have? is how to organize those in producing a theory that is in harmony with the other branches, with the other fields of human life, such as religion, for example. Which this issue is it's an ongoing issue now, and I'm saying that that has some guidance from Ghazali's psychology. Now, number two, the ideas presented by Ghazali on soul, intelligence, spirit, heart, virtues and vices, love and hate, and unhappiness, or the absence of happiness, are eternal in nature. They are lasting truths which do not undergo change with time. Now, point three, these truths are basic to traditional spiritual or metaphysical psychology. So I'm introducing the word here. Another word for perennial science. Yeah, I'm using the word traditional spiritual psychology or metaphysical psychology. Now, these in other words, these ideas, these truths, how do we accept them? On what basis do we accept them? What is the rationale for us to accept these truths, the truths that I've mentioned on soul, intelligence, and so on? Well, first of all, these ideas are based on faith in revelation. And Al-Ghazali lives in a world in which these are very important, very important. The faith in revelation, the faith in the Quran. The Quran is a source of knowledge, including knowledge about our soul. If you say that, well, nowadays people don't believe in soul, yes, people can say that. People can forget the word soul, but the reality that is signified by the word soul, that has not disappeared. So modern science, modern biology, modern psychology, cannot think that they have removed away the reality. The reality. I'm not talking about the term, about the reality, about the concept, but the reality. The reality implied by psychology is stay with human nature. And that's what modern biology and modern psychology is grappling with, trying to understand what is the underlying reality which we cannot see, which is invisible, that can explain behavior, why we behave in a certain manner. So therefore that contest, let's say, for example, between cognitive psychology and behavioral psychology. So in other words, why in many circles this remain outstanding issue, precisely because they do not have a concept, a unified concept that explains thought, beliefs, and behavior. The question why we see different kinds of behavior, what is it that determines that? So as for Al-Ghazali in particular, Islam in general, that faith in revelation, the belief in revealed data. So in other words, apart from experimental data, rational data, revealed data is a very important source of psychological ideas. Next is rational arguments, because Islam is a rational religion. Islam is a religion of knowledge. This, in principle, there is no contradiction between revelation and reason. So if Muslim psychologists use data from the Quran about the human soul, about human intelligence, This can be, in other words, reason can analyze those data, can explain those data, can come into detail, and even carry out empirical studies. Yeah. So that's what we have. Yeah. In other words, revelation, rational argument, and conformity with empirical data through experimentation. So there's nothing to fear. Yeah. Islamic psychology has nothing to fear. Empirical data, by all means, study. Want to study about animal psychology? By all means, proceed. Want to study about the human brain? Study. By means, proceed. But there are always checks and balances in terms of ideas, revelation, reason, and experimentation. So why, in that case, why can't modern and contemporary minds accept ideas from traditional psychology? Because there is unity. There's unity. Well, of course, I mean, I'm saying this is an issue precisely because people insist on not seeing that the unity. And the issues are basically ontological, methodological, and ethical. These are the issues that need to be ironed out. These are the issues that need to be ironed out in our discourse, among the generations. It's important. I'm not saying there's a clear. No. I mean, these are issues that we have to address in this encounter, in the counter between Al-Ghazali psychology and the modern and contemporary minds. Now, point number 4, traditional psychology has no problem. I'm repeating here. Traditional psychology has no problem with modern empirical or experimental psychology, except with some of the foundational assumptions and conceptual schemes of interpretation of empirical data. In 2 areas, foundational assumptions and then the schemes of interpretation scheme. What kind of principles that we use when we come to interpreting empirical data, because worldviews can influence interpretation. If we study philosophy of science, we'll study, certainly this is one of the issues that we have to address. Yeah, the dynamics of interpretation of empirical data. It is our mind. It is the mind of the researcher that's going to interpret. But our mind, when interpreting, is influenced by various factors, by various other ideas from other disciplines, by certain beliefs that we have. Yeah, those beliefs about reality, beliefs about the world, beliefs about the interaction between environment and the body and the spirit. Yeah, this all can influence interpretation. How did Islamic civilization approach this? So back to that, faith in revelation, revealed data, rational argument, the body of knowledge that has accumulated over the centuries. In other words, they have been well tested. Those ideas exist, and conformity with experimentation. Now, regarding the foundational assumption, this is important to realize. Every branch of knowledge that aspires to be an authentic science, they must have, first of all, a subject matter which is well defined. They must have foundational assumptions, in other words, assumptions about the subject matter that is to be studied. So, for example, if we want to study life, such as we do in biology, all right, we have to make certain assumptions about life. That we know that in modern times, the assumptions, for example, in biology about life, in fact, the mainstream thought in contemporary science is that life is something that comes out of the material world. It is not from extraterrestrial sources. It is right here. Yeah. So that, of course, that is the materialist viewpoint on this. But the point is, there must be foundational assumption. Now, in Islam, these foundational assumptions precisely are to be derived from either revelation or from philosophy based on rational argument, that is, and which could be different from the assumptions of modern psychology. Next point, traditional psychology sees contemporary psychology as multiplicity without unity. In other words, I'm trying to interpret Al-Ghazali. Yeah. So if Al-Ghazali is to be alive today, and he sees, and he looks at the, and he surveys the whole field called modern psychology or contemporary psychology, what does he see? What would he say? Yeah. He would say that basically there are also many schools of thought, many intellectual perspectives. In other words, the psychologists themselves are divided into, in other words, representatives of different perspectives, such as the behavioral perspective, such as the evolutionary perspective, the psychodynamism perspective. All right, all the major perspectives in contemporary psychology. I say, yes, fine. It is fine to study the psyche, to study the human self from different perspectives. But these perspectives are at odds. The perspectives, if you look at the literature that you have, they are at odds with each other. So you have multiplicity, but without unity. I think I'm saying this, I'm staking out my, my reputation. Yeah, I'm saying then somehow the modern psychology does not have a unifying theory that will be able to see, to put the different perspectives in psychology, in modern psychology, in its proper place, how they are interrelated to each other. I think that he will probably say that. So Al-Ghazali, as a representative, a great representative of traditional psychology, would make, I think, such an observation. Okay, next slide. The title for the the next slide. Al-Ghazali first point on this slide. Diversity. The title is Diversity and Unity. in traditional and modern contemporary psychology. Pushing further the question of this diversity or multiplicity in unity, now contrasting the positions regarding diversity and unity, both in both traditional psychology and in modern contemporary psychology. Now, I'm saying here, Al-Ghazali's integral psychology. Why do I'm using the word here now, integral psychology? In other words, the different perspectives on psychology as unified by Al-Ghazali in his mind. Yeah? So I call it integral psychology. It is a unified psychology in which different perspectives are present, but they are interrelated to each other. There is basically unity. So Al-Ghazali's integral psychology combines and unifies several perspectives associated with different schools of thought. Earlier I mentioned this, but let me repeat here. Ghazali's integral psychology combines and unifies several perspectives associated with different schools of thought. Jurisprudential psychology, and to understand the perspectives of the Sharia, basically of divine law. What is the logic of saying obedience to God? The fear, the value of fear that is encouraged by the Quran. Of course, the fear of Allah. So fear of Allah is an aspect of the human self and human being. It is about being a sense of loyalty, a sense of what I call sense of as it's people do things because of fear of Allah. So that is associated with jurisprudential psychology, because it is being criticized by secular psychology, saying that fear, the element of fear that religion tries to inculcate, is a negative thing. Well, jurisprudential psychology, Islam, will have an answer to that kind of thing, yeah, because they should not. I mean, the Islamic jurisprudential psychology will respond to stand that, well, we need to distinguish between fear that is of negative kind, it's a kind of negative fear, and there is a kind of fear that is positive. So certainly, Islamic spirituality, Islamic religion is talking about when it's talking about fear of Allah, it is fear. It is in the positive sense, you know, something which in which sense which prevents the growth of spirituality. On the contrary, it is the beginning of wisdom. In fact, as the word of the famous saying in Islam, that fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So it is different perspective altogether. Yeah, fear of Allah is the beginning of wisdom, not the beginning of ignorance. On the contrary, it is not the beginning of ignorance; it is the beginning of wisdom. So we can so on again. But the point is that jurisprudential psychology is part of Al-Ghazali's integral psychology, so that the Sharia, all the kinds of the ibadah, all kinds of practical religion that I talk about in the Ihya-ul-Muddin, all have their place in the overall mind of the Muslim psychologists. Next is Kalam psychology, which is associated with beliefs, which is of course associated with Iman. So basically, Kalam psychology combines the elements of faith, Iman. So again, Iman here is something not contradictory, not something opposed to knowledge. In fact, generally speaking, Iman and knowledge are closely intertwined. They reinforce each other. Yeah. So it is said that in Islam, Iman is based on knowledge, just as knowledge is based on Iman. So faith and knowledge, we can say that two sides of the same coin. The two need each other. Islam as the religion of knowledge, yes, that's correct, but at the same time, it calls for a strong faith, because it's the nature of faith. The nature of faith, as understood in Islam, is based on knowledge. So Kalam psychology is one dimension. It's another dimension of Al-Ghazali's integral psychology. And then the philosophical scientific psychology, which happens to be the of similar kind as we find today. This is scientific psychology. Al-Ghazali studied this, wrote on this. So in other words, although he borrowed much also from the Peripatetic school, like the Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and in the history of Islamic science, this is the more prominent one, because this is what was further later on inherited by modern science. And then, of course, you have the Sufi psychology, which has its own methods to spiritual health, to spiritual therapy, the importance of meditation in Sufi psychology. So all these are major dimensions in Al-Ghazali's integral psychology. Something I think that today we can learn a lot, we can benefit much, how Al-Ghazali integrated all these different streams of psychological thought. It is we do have individuals today, Muslim individuals, who are knowledgeable in one of these streams of psychology, but not one who knows all. Let's say, for example, I mentioned four there, who knows all the four, combines them into unity, but more important, who also believes in the truth of each of these streams. Now, each perspective may be seen as an Islamic version of a combination of one or more of the following perspectives in modern psychology. This is something that I hope some of you we try to study further. Yeah, I'm making a claim here. I'm interpreting my own interpretation here. I'm saying that each perspective, in other words, each of the four perspectives of Ghazali's psychology may be seen as an Islamic version of a combination of one or more of the following perspectives in modern psychology. I'm referring now to the various perspectives of modern psychology. Why some of those perspectives, in a sense, try to be understood as an individual school of thought that is divorced from the other schools, and they somehow debate against each other, criticize against each other. But actually, in the perspective of Ghazali, those so-called individual perspectives may actually be harmonized, maybe combined. Now, point number 2 here, diverse perspectives. Yes, I'm mentioning here now, and trying to explain further how each perspective of Ghazali integral psychology will address the diverse perspectives in modern psychology. All right, because the word perspective is used here in the context of modern psychology, but it is not the same thing as the idea of school of thought as understood in Islamic civilization. See, the school of thought is understood in Islamic civilization that refers to madhab, school of thought. So here, of course, we're talking here about madhab in psychology. Yes, there are different madhab in Islamic psychology. So is modern psychology. But I find that in modern psychology, sometimes people use the word school of thought is more kind of specialty area. So different perspectives here mean different specialty area rather than schools of thought, because in schools of thought, the difference pertains to principles, how certain phenomena or perspectives about studying the soul, how to study the soul. So, for example, the Sufi way of studying, the Sufi approach to the soul is different, say, from the philosophical scientific psychology adopted by Ibn Sina. What I mean. So now we have, I just reproduce here 7 major perspectives or specialty areas in modern psychology. First, the psychodynamic perspectives, associated with Sigmund Freud. So behavioral perspective, cognitive aspect, and perspective, biological or physiological, and then you have the cross-cultural perspective, the evolutionary perspective, and humanistic psychology. These are the major perspectives of psychology in modern psychology. But all the 7 here, if you look carefully, it's not so much representing different schools of thought as representing different specialty areas. This is where we're at. So, but still, I'm saying this diversity lacks unifying or integrating principles. So now this issue is awaiting solutions from our emerging community of Muslim psychologists today. This has to address. How do we confer these unifying principles? I think the beauty, in other words, the main strength, the great asset that Islamic thought has is Tawheed. Tawheed simply means unity. So the principle of Tawheed in Islamic thought, that provides the integrating principles. So, of course, with some ways not possible, since I think my own interpretation is that part of the evolutionary psychology is not acceptable from the perspective, or certainly from the perspective of Ghazali's integral psychology. Yeah, but as far as the cross-cultural perspective, the behavioral perspective, the cognitive perspective, basically it could be integrated into Islamic psychology. Now, the point number 3, the main message of Ghazali psychology to modern psychology is this. This is my interpretation. I'm putting in the words Al-Ghazali said. Your multiple, Al-Ghazali is addressing modern psychology, your multiple perspectives that now coexist may only be unified if you have an integral theory of human nature, but you don't have it. As I'm putting that way. Yeah, Al-Ghazali, as Al-Ghazali is saying modern psychology, you talk of multiple perspective now which coexist. Yes, you interact. All right, you want to find how to know more about human nature, but the point is you do not have integral theory of human nature. I think that is that's important thing to reflect on, to ponder. I hope this issue will be taken up by some of you, inshallah. Now, the point number 4. Now, Al-Ghazali's psychology is posing a challenge. Now, it's a challenge from Al-Ghazali to contemporary Muslim psychologists. I'm quoting here. I'm putting words into it. I said, all right, provide now the integration of the 7 major perspectives of modern psychology into a Tawhidic science of the self. I repeat, provide now the integration of the 7 major perspectives of modern psychology into a Tawhidic science of the self. So that is a good exercise for you all. All right, next I go to the next slide. The next slide, the title of the next slide, Al-Ghazali and the heart-centric psychology, the psychology that the contemporary world needs. So I repeat the title, Al-Ghazali and the heart-centric psychology. So now I'm introducing a concept, heart-centric psychology. Psikologi yang berpusatkan hati kalbu in Malay. The heart-centric psychology. And I'm arguing that this is the psychology that our world today needs. Now, let me explain what is all about this heart-centric psychology. I'm just rephrasing ideas from the previous lectures. Number 1, the idea of the center is necessary to human life. It's just a general statement here. I am provoking you. The idea of the center is necessary to human life. The center of man's whole being is his heart. The center of man's whole being is his heart. It is his sound and healthy heart that keeps him in balance and equilibrium, which is precisely what it means to be healthy. I'm trying to bring in now this the concept of the center, which I said is very important. Now apply it to psychology and concept of health. Right? So it is a sound and healthy heart that keeps it in balance and equilibrium, which is precisely what it means to be healthy. Second point, the heart is the center of man's life, the center of the individual human life. There's the heart. The heart is the center of man's consciousness. The heart is the center of man's intelligence. The heart is the center of man's cognition and emotions. So the heart is this. That's why I say the heart is the center of man's whole being. So, which means here, the human heart, the heart here, of course, we're here to the spiritual heart, qalb, which at the deepest level is identical with spirit, roh, with soul, nafs, and with intelligence, aql. The heart is the seat of all this. So therefore, all the other, in this sense, from this perspective, all the organs of the human being, all the organs, instruments, are the instruments of the spiritual heart. So let's say cognition, for example, our physical senses. So from our perspective, from the perspective that, from the heart-centric perspective, our physical senses, our eyes, our ears, our tongue, the organ of taste, these are all organs of the heart. In other words, they receive their instructions from the heart. It is the heart that instructs our eyes what to see. It is the heart that instructs our ears what to listen. The heart, it is heart that instructs our tongue what to taste, and so on. Yeah. So this is another way of looking at the nature and function of the various organs. In this case, you are talking about the cognitive organs. This is intelligent. That's why it is said in tradition, and Al-Ghazali emphasized this. According to Al-Ghazali, the intellect, our intellect, reason, is the eye of the heart. Is the eye of the heart. Through the intellect, reason, the heart is able to see things invisible, immaterial things. Point 3. The heart is the real face of man in which God is truly interested. His physical face is the outward projection of his inner face. This is very important, of course, very much popular in Sufi, in the Sufi perspectives, of which Al-Ghazali is a very important representative. Yeah, it's very interesting here. Yeah, as I'm saying that the heart is the real face of man, and in fact, it is this face, this real face of man, the heart, if you quite interested. They're saying in the you see, what God is interested is not your face, it's not your appearance, but at your heart. So God is interested in the appearance of the heart, on the quality of the heart, the virtues of the heart, because the heart is a kind of mirror. How shining is the mirror? How clean is the mirror? That's God interested in that. Our face, our physical face, is only the outward projection of his inner face, meaning the heart. So the face of the heart is actually what influences, what shapes our physical face. So when our heart is happy, so we see that happiness also in our physical face. So our physical face is an expression of our spiritual heart. Now, point number 4, man is a multi-layered being with layers of life, consciousness, and intelligence. His heart becomes the center of concentric circles of life, consciousness, and intelligence. So let me repeat here. Man is a multi-layered being. So in man as a multi-layered being, he has a single heart. The heart is the center of his being, but the being then is multi-layered. So it's as if we can draw a kind here of a a system of concentric circles. We draw a concentric circle with a common center. So our heart is the common center, but around the heart, we have, in sense, different layers of life. There is the outermost layer of life, which is studied by biology, by biophysical science. But that is not the only layer of life. This is the traditional critique of modern biology, for example, is to regard life as only consisting of one layer or one. But human life is not simply that outer layer of life that is studied. But there is also the layer of life which is studied by psychology, the layer of life, the level of psychic, for example, the psychic life, and of course the spiritual life. So they represent different layers. They are not of the same one layer. They are not different things that coexist at one level of reality. Similarly, consciousness. We human being does not have only one level of consciousness. This the kind of miraculous thing about human consciousness is that our consciousness can just fly from one place to another, from one level to another level. So let's say we can have a consciousness of seeing an ant. We see small ant. We are studying the ant. We have the consciousness of the ant. And in the next moment, we can have a consciousness of God. So Islamic psychology studies these different levels of consciousness, and the state of that, of course, is the heart. So, and I think the figure, the geometric figure of having concentric circles, whether of life or consciousness and intelligence, that is very, very attractive, very, very intriguing. The human heart becomes the center of a number of concentric circles, primarily of life, consciousness, and intelligence. Thus, for example, as an example, human being has layers of biophysical, psychic, angelic, and divine intelligences in his own being. So just let's take, for example, the attribute of intelligence. So we have these different layers of intelligence. Biophysical, associated with the animal intelligence, the psychic, the angelic and divine intelligence. Of course, in the case of the human being, he has all this because he's a microcosm. Now, point number 5. Al-Ghazali's heart-centric psychology is sanctioned by religion. That is important. The real origin and source of human thought and activity is the heart. The real origin and source of human thought and activity is the heart. The real worth of man's conduct is determined by his niyyah, intention, which is what's emphasized in the hadith, in the Prophet hadith. In other words, this is our niyyah, intention, that really determines the real worth of our conduct. And this niyyah, intention, is a profound expression of the heart. It goes right to the heart. Okay, next slide. Now, the next topic that I would like to touch here, but still under the heart-centric psychology, still continuing with the heart-centric psychology, what the world needs. Now, the next point, cardiac intelligence. There's intelligence of the heart. cardiac intelligence, intelligence based on the heart, has priority over cerebral intelligence. This is basically, I think I'm right in interpreting this as something that is quite clear in Ghazali's work, right? So cardiac intelligence has priority over cerebral intelligence. In the sense, it corresponds, cardiac intelligence corresponds to a deeper reality in us, not the cerebral. After all, the cerebral intelligence is only an aspect of what Islam refers to intellect, reason, or al-aql. Yeah. Cerebral intelligence is only an aspect, not the whole, it's not the entire intelligence. Human intelligence is not reducible to cerebral intelligence. Actually, the cerebral intelligence is much richer, it's more fundamental, more basic than cerebral intelligence. This is a very important point. Yeah. Now, cardiac intelligence gives instruction to the latter. Yeah. Which is what I was saying earlier. The intellect is the eye of the heart. Now, it is interesting, this traditional idea that cardiac intelligence gives instruction to cerebral intelligence. Interesting because I've come to know that the idea of primacy of cardiac over cerebral intelligence now, in our time, finds experimental support in neurology, in which it is said that although a two-way traffic of information between the heart and the letter, the brain receives more information from the heart than what is sent to the letter. So I'm saying here that experimental neurology has made the discovery in terms of this sending messages. Yeah, different organs sending messages. In this case, basically very fundamental importance, strategic to the human intelligence is the communication between the heart and the brain. Yeah? Each sending information to the other. Well, just to emphasize the fundamentality of cardiac, the primacy of cardiac intelligence of the heart over the brain, it is said that in this experiment, the heart sends more messages to the brain than it receives from the brain. Just to emphasize, it's a very symbolic thing. As is working saying, yes, in other words, the heart is more active. It's more active than the brain in sending messages, in sending information. The word is information, because I think the concept of information in the case of intelligence is very important. All right, so that's basically that point. Now, point number 2, cardiac intelligence informs the highest state of human consciousness, which is necessary to spiritual life, such as in meditation. This is part of Al-Ghazali spiritual psychology. Cardiac intelligence informs the highest state of human consciousness. So when a human being, when a person experiences this, the state of consciousness which is related to, say, meditation, for example, spiritual meditation into invocation of God, of the divine name, right? So what is it that, who is doing that? Yeah? Who is providing that information which gives meaning to that meditation and its corresponding consciousness? It is cardiac, it is the heart. It is the role of the heart. That's important. Now, point number 3, cerebral intelligence is fed with information from both the physical and the spiritual worlds. This principle is contrary to what is believed in evolutionary cognitive psychology. And this is also contrary to what we learn, say, from in studying methodology of science from the modern perspective, because from the evolutionary perspective, it's all from below. Its information comes from the physical world. The data are derived from the physical world, passed to the brain. The physical senses collect this data, pass to the brain to process, then and produce new knowledge. All right, but that is only half the story. There's only half the story. What is the other half of the other half? Is then the brain also receives data, information from the higher world, from the upper world, from the spiritual world. So cerebral intelligence, the brain receives from both. It's from the earth, from the earthly sources, as well as from the heavenly or from the spiritual source. That is a very, very important observation. That's why if we do meditate, for example, if our spiritual heart is doing contemplation, we derive information not from the physical world, but from the spiritual world. This is why meditation is considered as a source of knowledge. That's why the intuition, intellectual intuition, is considered as a source of knowledge. And for that matter, at the level of the Prophet, it is the wahi, it is the revelation that is not from below, but from God. So by approaching this idea of cerebral intelligence in this way, then we see its proper place. What actually the role of cardiac intelligence and what is the role of cerebral intelligence? Now, point number 4, the role of the heart in the taming and domestication of the animal nature within man, to the point that the latter will serve the former. This is the precondition of psychological health. In Islamic psychology, what is the approach? How does Islamic psychology propose to deal with the animal nature? Because it has been said over and over again that if we succumb, we submit ourselves to the animal nature. That's how we are promoting. We are promoting greed. We are promoting anger. We are promoting all the kinds of evil because we are giving total freedom to the animal nature. When in fact, what should in fact be is that we control human nature. So today, a lot of people are talking about controlling external nature, how to control external nature. But people forget how to control the inner nature, the animal nature with him. And what Al-Ghazali spiritual psychology saying that, no, the heart has a role. So if you're talking about the wild animal nature that is allowed, say the animal nature that is allowed to go wild, well, the heart is interested in the taming, how to tame the animal nature, how to domesticate the nature. It's not the function of the heart to kill that nature, to eliminate the nature. That is an impossibility. It is impossible. That is necessary. Because in order to live on earth, to continue to live, we need that animal nature. But that animal nature should be tamed, should be domesticated. And that is the role of the heart. And that is the precondition of psychological health. If we cannot do that, then, well, we are not going to have that psychological health. So basically, psychological health requires that state of balance between the heart and the animal nature, in which the animal nature submits itself to the wishes of the heart, to the what basically the dictates of the spiritual heart. And point number 5, to play that role, the heart needs the help of practical religion, as Al-Ghazali has described. And that's basically the whole purpose of Ihya Ulumuddin. The whole purpose of Ihya Ulumuddin may be simply summarized here. Yeah. In other words, as far as Al-Ghazali sees it, when he talks about the science of practical religion, is none other than to give help and guidance to the heart to play its role.
What you want? No.
Yeah. Basically, this is what the heart-centric psychology is. The heart-centric psychology.
Yeah.
Okay, next. The next slide. The next slide. Now I'm finished with the heart-centric psychology. Now I'm going to another topic. Another slide here. The title is "The Rampant Psychological Illnesses in the Modern World." So, what is Al-Ghazali's therapy? So, we invite Al-Ghazali to our century. So, what he sees, what if he's alive today, he will see the rampant psychological illnesses in the modern world. And all right, so what does he propose to do? What we propose to do? Now, first point, anxiety, stress, hopelessness, loneliness, sadness, agitation, boredom, and so on are the lot of modern people. The lot of modern people. These are examples of psychological illnesses that afflict so many people in the modern world. Point 2, Al-Ghazali discerned the root causes of these psychological illnesses in the loss of meaning in one's life. That's the first thing he would say. Yeah, to us who live today, in which we see all these psychological illnesses, is that the problem is that, I mean, the root causes. Do you know what are the root causes of all this? As Ali said, the loss of meaning in one's life. Modern man forgets the true purpose of life. He looks for purposes elsewhere, but not the real one, not the true purpose. He comes up with tons and tons of books on the purpose of life, but all of the track. Yeah. Modern man no longer knows his true identity, who he really is. Number 3, Al-Ghazali will propose a heart-centric approach to psychological health. That is probably his advice to us. Let us adopt this heart-centric approach to psychological health. What does it mean? We need to lead a spiritual life, following the examples of the prophets and the saints, For Ghazali, revealed religion provides both preventive psychological medicine and therapeutic treatments of psychological illness. This is advice to us. We need to go back to revealed religion, because revealed religion, particularly is law, is Sharia, the divine law. Yeah. But this was discussed in here, Al-Madin. If you remember, in one of my previous lectures, I did emphasize it. In other words, there is such a thing as preventive surgical medicine, just as in physical medicine also, there is preventive medicine. We say prevention is better than cure. We take all the preventive measures in order to make sure that we'll be healthy. But despite all taking those measures, if we still fall ill for some reason, then medicine provides, in the case of physical medicine, yes, it provides therapeutic treatments of psychological illnesses. So in the case of social, in the case of spiritual medicine, they provide the therapeutic means. So, for example, against religion, revealed religion, not man-made religion, is needed by human being in order to serve this both the preventive dimension as well as the therapeutic dimension. Now, central to Al-Ghazali's methods to the attainment of integral health are remembrance of God, meditation, litanies, awrad, plural of wird, awrad, and contemplation, which constitute the core activities of the heart. So it's again related to heart-centric approach. Yeah, the spiritual activities that mentioned here, that of course there are other spiritual activities. Of course, our canonical prayer, salat. Yes, that is also a spiritual activity. But why we emphasize here the remembrance of God, for example, because actually the value of our salat, the value of our prayer, depends on how much we remember God in our prayer. Therefore, the remembrance of God is the determining factor. Similarly, with meditation, I think it is all about remembrance of God in various forms, and contemplation, which is basically related to the intellect, which is the eye of the heart. So all these constitute the core activities of the heart, or I would say the fundamental elements of the heart-centric psychology as proposed by Al-Ghazali. Now let me go to the next. Yes, I think I come to the last slide here. The last slide here. No, this is the second last slide. The attainment of happiness, Al-Ghazali's alchemy. Al-Ghazali's precious legacy to the modern world. It's just a short manual on how to attain happiness. On how to attain happiness, the alchemy of happiness, the formula to attain happiness. It's called the alchemy, because the alchemy implies also signifies some kind of mysteriousness as well. No, it is not easily, not simply a kind of rational, because we are combining different kinds of elements. We want to synthesize that. So there is a formula, the secret formula to attain happiness. So that book, as I said in my earlier lecture, it is the kind of summary of the Ihya Ulumuddin. Yeah. So we thank to Ghazali for leaving us this very precious legacy. I think it's worth revisiting this book again and again to remind ourselves. But the important point is that it's not just to continue reading, but to put that into practice, to actualize what he was saying in the book. Now, Al-Ghazali reminds us the important truth. We moderns have forgotten about ourselves, who we are. That's emphasized in the book Alchemy of Happiness. Why are we in this world? Yeah, or who we are? Who are we? Why are we in this world? It's about our life journey. We are on a journey, and of course, ultimately, it is about God. So it's all because we are lost in the wilderness of materialism and fake progress. That's the problem. Yeah? We are lost now. Many of us. Yeah? We hope we pray to God that we are safe. Yeah? We are not lost. But many people are lost in the wilderness of materialism and fake progress. Now, happiness is about the state of the heart. Again, the central role of the heart comes in. Modern man wants to find happiness in the wrong places. So he couldn't find it. So he wants to find happiness in wealth, in power, in fame, in the world, which at best can only confer transient or temporary happiness. But the secret of happiness, the true and lasting one, is in the contentment of the heart. The Quran says, it is in the remembrance of God that one's heart finds peace and tranquility. My last slide. Yes, all what I said looks like easy. Yes, we can do that. If we do that, everything is solved. But we are facing a problem. But now it's a problem of every one of us. Problems as members of the world community today. So if you want to present Al-Ghazali to our times, to our contemporary world, we should be aware of the challenges. So I mentioned here the title, The Great Psychological Barrier to be Overcome Between Al-Ghazali's and Modern Perspective on Human Nature. So I summarize the challenge, that barrier that needs to be overcome here in 3 items here. 1, Al-Ghazali lived in the 11th century of the Common Era. And he lived in the Islamic world, not in the West, not in the East, not in China. But the most important here is the time, the period, 11th century, when the West today thinks that Europe, the West, was in the Dark Ages, that medieval period. So the period reminds the West of certain things which they are not happy with. So Al-Ghazali lived in that period, and more of all in the Islamic world, which also persists very negatively today. So the modern West has many preconceived ideas about the period and the place in question, which do not lend a good appreciation of Al-Ghazali psychology. So that is a challenge, a psychological challenge that we face. The second thing is the evolutionary perspective of the modern mind is hostile to the traditional perspective on human nature, to the marriage between science and religion. No way. Let science and religion be separated. No marriage between the two. The two should remain single, not married. The modern mind is also hostile. What do you call this? the traditional perspective on epistemology. That's a gap. So the issue here is that there is a big gap between Al-Ghazali's psychology and the kind of mindset that we have in the that is in modern world. And finally, the modern idea of progress in knowledge is an obstacle to appreciation of Ghazali psychology. Why an obstacle? But still, and personally, it's also my own belief, still we call for a philosophical dialogue between traditional and modern psychology for the sake of the real progress in psychology. If you're all sincere, if you're all honest, in trying to bring about real progress in the field of knowledge that we call psychology, let us have dialogue between traditional and modern psychology so that we can address the outstanding issues that divide the two. So thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm very happy to deliver this last lecture. I'm happy that at last we finished the 5 lectures. Thank you to everyone, those who attend every lecture and even those who attend on the part of him for helping the organizers, the brother Seyed, Jamaluddin, and brother and sister Fatima for the wonderful work they have in organizing this. I hope, I pray to Allah that this series has been blessed. He has blessed it, and we all have benefited. I benefit from you, and you benefit from me. So thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much, dear Professor Osman, for this wonderful, wonderful lecture today. As khitam al-misk, as they say, mashallah. It was very tasteful. We're very grateful. And please, round of applause to our dear Ustad, our professor, our Hoja, as they say in Turkish as well, Professor Osman Bakar. Thank you so much. Round of applause from all of us to you, please. Alhamdulillah. We unfortunately, dear excellent participants, brothers and sisters, won't be able to have Q&As today. We only have 4 minutes left, but it was so enjoyable to listen to this last session of Professor Osman. So I think we all are very much grateful for learning, and having this extra minutes with Professor Osman has truly been an honor. Professor Osman, we've collected all of the questions from all of our excellent participants, brothers and sisters. So we will send them to you. Whenever you have time, Professor, if you could answer some of them, we will then send it back, your answers, to all those who registered to the lecture today. Sister Fatima, if you can just share the registration link one more time for all of you who haven't registered and want to receive the answers, if possible, from Professor Osman, including the PowerPoint slides and the link to the lecture today. Feel free to register yourself to the lecture series, inshallah. With that said, I wanted to actually I wanted to do 2 things before we end. I wanted to just summarize what I learned personally from your lecture by doing a nasheed rap, inshallah. I've been thinking about it in my head. I'm a former hip hop artist, by the way, but alhamdulillah, when I went into my suluk, I left that lifestyle and I started to practice Islam more spiritually and more thoroughly, but I still kept the poetry things aside. And you know that Imam Ghazali wrote poetry as well. So this was also part of dissemination of knowledge traditionally, that a lot of Muslim scholars, and they also wrote their thoughts in a poetic way, right? So that's one thing I want to do. And then Professor Osman, maybe you will see if I captured your thoughts or not for this lecture today. Secondly, we want to take a picture with all of you, dear participants, including Professor Osman. For all of you who want to be part of the picture, open up your cameras, please. Let me change the view to gallery view. So I will take a joint picture that we will share with all of you, and we will upload it into ISIP's website as well. So please open up your cameras. This is a historical event. We have members from all over the world joining this course today with Professor Osman. So we have people from the Caribbeans to New Zealand, capturing the whole ummah and the whole world. So open up your cameras if you want to be part. There will be a couple of screenshots that I will take. They usually say in English, smile or cheese. We will say, let's say, Islamic Psychology.
We should say Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali.
Imam Ghazali. If you say
Yeah.
he, then you better smile, inshallah. All right, so let's do this. So I'll start here. Bismillah. Take one picture here. Perfect. Thank you.
Imam Ghazali.
Imam Ghazali. Yes, inshallah. Oh, we have some children with us as well. MashaAllah. We need to teach the children in a young age about the paradigm of ilm al-nafs from Ghazalian point of view.
Assalamu alaikum.
Next picture, please. So everybody say Imam Ghazali.
Imam Ghazali.
Imam Ghazali.
Oh, mashallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. I'm just saving the pictures. Just bear with me, inshallah. So, yeah. Take a third picture because. Okay, I think those who have. You know what? I will take picture, but all of you haven't opened your cameras either because your names are here. So your names will be highlighted, inshallah. So we'll take one more here.
Imam Ghazali.
MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum, young brother. How are you, young brother? Or are you good? What is your name?
Ryan and Ramadan.
Oh, mashallah. Ramadan. What a beautiful name you have, Ramadan. I hope you will continue to do lectures about Imam Ghazali, inshallah, and learn from all these great scholars. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, everyone. I took pictures with all of you. So allow yourself to mute yourself again, and I will try to my best to do a nasheed capturing the knowledge, inshallah. All right, so let's see if I can manage it. It will be a creative way.
Salaam alaikum.
All right. Salaam alaikum, little brother. All right, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you so much, everybody. When I freestyle, it's so clean. Imam Ghazali, Islamic psychology, different than the ontology of Western ways of shaping psychology or sociology. We need to reshape our anthropology because we are not human-centered. We have verticality, which remember us that it's psychology that is tawhidi and not just focusing on the nafs and behavior inclination. Islamic psychology is more holistic, so have some patience. But the Western paradigm has been internalized. Through Professor Osman Bakar's lecture, we will realize that we need to stop disguising our thoughts in a different way. We need to go back to a fitra, and that's no cliche. So I love the way that you, Professor Osman, dissected all this knowledge from Ihya Ulumuddin. You meant it. Ihya Ulumuddin, fitra so clean, a jewel of the ummah. We need to understand what Imam Ghazali means. So we need to restructure ourselves back to the primary sources, the Quran and the Sunnah. Of course, emotions comes when we root ourselves in Allah's wishes and will. This is a thrill. This is so chill. This is not ill. We need to understand how behaviorism and rationalism and secularism has come in disguise to say that they own psychology paradigms, and that's not the way we should shine. They distorted our vision. That's why we cannot be superstitious. We need to go back to our own tradition. This is our hikmah mission. So thank you, Professor Osman Bakar, for being so kind with your time. We hope we can learn more from you. You're the jewel that shines. From contemporary era, we take it back to the time when Islamic thought was always on the rise, and understand that colonialism has come through, and we need to be wise to understand how we can decolonialize in order to our thoughts once more Islamicize. Barakallahu feekum, everyone. I hope that was good.
Barakallahu feekum.
Jazakallah khairah. With that said, dear brothers and sisters, I tried to capture what Professor Osman said today. In my way, you can do it in your way. Take the knowledge that you learn and try to apply it into your own practice, whether you're a student, PhD student, as the young children, they are children. If you're a parent, if you're a mental health professional, if you're a scholar, take the knowledge that we received from our excellent teacher, Professor Osman, and apply it into your daily practice, into your life. And inshallah, we will revisit Ihya Ulumuddin from a different point of view There is so much nasiha, so much hikmah to be gained from this jewel of the source of knowledge with Imam Ghazali provided for us 1,000 years ago, and it's still relevant today. Thank you, Professor Osman. Thank you to all ISIP members, Sister Fatima,
Thank
Sister
you.
Faria, Brother Abdulaziz, Sister Osi. Thank you to IIUM and ISTAC for collaborating with us. We're so honored to be in touch with two of the most excellent Islamic institutions in contemporary era. Thank you to all of our brothers and sisters who participated, and all of you who have written questions, all of you who done all the assessments, all of you who joined. You're all truly jewels of the Ummah. Continue to be seekers of knowledge, continue to disseminate knowledge from West Africa to East Africa, from Southeast Asia to Middle East, from north of Europe to North America. We're all together in this day and era. Continue to be seekers of knowledge and share your knowledge, and hopefully we will learn from you all as well. Thank you to all my colleagues, and please forgive me for any shortcomings. All the good comes from Allah, all the mistakes are solidly mine. Please forgive us for any shortcomings, and please keep us in your du'as, and we hope that we will meet you soon again. Professor Osman, you wanted to say something. You raised your hand. Was it something?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Professor Osman, could you bless
Barakallahu
us,
fikum.
inshallah, with a closing dua, inshallah?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma inna nas'aluka imanan da'ima. ونسألك قلبا خاشعا ونسألك علما نافعا ونسألك يقينا صادقا ونسألك دينا قيما ونسألك خيرا كثيرا ونسألك العفو والعافية ونسألك تمام العافية اللهم اجعلنا من التوابين وجعلنا من المتطهرين وجعلنا من عباد الصالحين يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا أرحم الراحمين صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد عبدك ورسولك نبيه ومن آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Barakallahu fikum, Professor.